Michael had always valued stable, transparent relationships. For him, love meant trust. It wasn't in his nature to invade someone's privacy or create stories based on insecurities. When he met Sarah, he felt he had found someone who shared these same values. She was determined, witty, with clear plans for the future, and had an engaging way of looking at life. The connection between them grew quickly, and they built a routine together based on companionship and respect, sharing daily responsibilities and celebrating each small achievement together. For a long time, nothing gave him reason to doubt their relationship. But that changed the day she introduced a new coworker, Ethan, without warning. It was a Saturday afternoon, during an informal barbecue at a mutual friend's house. Michael had arrived early, as he had agreed with the host to help with the preparations. He set up the tables, lit the grill, and laughed with the other men while seasoning the meat on the porch. Sarah, on the other hand, was still at work, and had said she would arrive later. They had planned everything in advance, and Michael was calm, looking forward to spending some relaxed time with old friends while waiting for his wife. When Sarah arrived, she brought Ethan and a few other coworkers. Michael was preparing drinks when Sarah approached with her usual smile and casually said, "Honey, this is Ethan, the one who's always helping me with projects at the office." Michael extended his hand, trying to be polite, but immediately felt something strange. It was hard to explain, but Ethan seemed too confident, almost like he knew his presence would cause discomfort. And maybe he did. Ethan's tone, the way he looked at Sarah, and the inside jokes they shared right in front of everyone. Everything made Michael feel uneasy. For the rest of the afternoon, Michael tried to act naturally, but he couldn't ignore Ethan's behavior. He always sat close to Sarah, made a point of telling stories that involved her, recalled details of conversations that didn't seem particularly relevant, and sometimes spoke with an intimacy that felt out of place. Sarah laughed, either not noticing or pretending not to notice how it sounded. At one point, Ethan went to the kitchen, and Michael saw an opportunity to follow him. He just wanted to look the guy in the eye and maybe understand why his presence bothered him so much. Ethan turned around, gave an almost mocking smile, and asked if Michael also worked in events since Sarah talked about him a lot at the office. Michael responded in a dry tone, maintaining his gaze, and then left the kitchen without prolonging the conversation. Inside, something had already changed. From that day forward, Michael began noticing small details, not because he wanted to find a problem, but because Sarah's behavior started to feel different. The main source of his discomfort was always the same: Ethan's name. During casual dinners, Sarah would talk about how productive Ethan was, how creative, how he had saved a project at the last minute. Once they even argued because Michael asked a direct question. "Are you sure he's just a coworker?" Sarah laughed it off, answering lightly, as if the idea was absurd. But that response, calm as it seemed, left a bitter taste in Michael's mouth. When someone laughs, instead of answering clearly, something is usually being hidden. Despite his unease, Michael tried to continue life as normal. He worked, took care of the house, made plans with Sarah, but he could no longer see her the same way. Every laugh on the phone, every message she said was from work, every time she left for extended meetings with the team, it all started to weigh heavily. What once felt like a light relationship had become a constant exercise in self-control. He avoided asking too many questions, knowing how insecure it could sound. He never wanted to be that kind of man, but inside, he was silently falling apart. The definitive moment came during an ordinary breakfast when Sarah mentioned a company integration trip to a lake nearby. She said it was for the whole weekend, and that several co-workers were going, including Ethan. Michael, without averting his gaze, asked, "Who else is going?" Sarah named a few people and finally said casually, "Oh, Ethan's going too." That was enough. Michael took a deep breath and, without changing his tone, without irony or attack, simply said, "If you go, then don't come back." Sarah looked at him for a few seconds, surprised. She tried to brush it off as a joke, asking if he was being dramatic. Michael remained silent. It was as if all the pieces had finally fallen into place in his mind. It no longer mattered whether there was proof, whether she admitted or denied anything. The trust that had once been as solid as stone was now dust, and when that kind of ruin happens, no argument can sustain what's been destroyed. Trying to stay calm, Sarah looked into Michael's eyes and said she had always been loyal, that she had never given him a reason to distrust her. "I've always been here, Michael. Present, sincere, transparent. I've never hidden anything from you, never acted behind your back. So why are you looking at me now as if I'm a stranger?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of hurt and frustration. And again, Michael looked at her and said, "If you go, then don't come back." Sarah looked away, muttered something like, "It's up to you," and left the table. Michael just stayed there, staring at his plate. No appetite left, his chest filled with a growing emptiness. That morning, Michael realized that sometimes a single unfamiliar presence is enough to reveal the entire truth. Sarah went. She packed her small suitcase, some light clothes, a pair of sandals, and the sunscreen she kept aside for trips. She put on perfume, fixed her hair in the living room mirror, and left the house as if it were just another weekend. Without hesitation, without looking back, as if the phrase Michael had said days earlier was just a fit of jealousy, something that would pass soon, as if he would be there waiting, as he always had been, until she returned and pretended everything was the same. But this time, something had already changed. He didn't ask for explanations, nor did he try to make her change her mind. He simply observed. Each of her steps toward the door felt like a period forming within him. As soon as she crossed the gate, Michael sat on the couch, crossed his arms, and breathed as if he needed to gather strength. He stayed there 4 hours without turning on the TV, without music, without distractions, just his thoughts filling every space. It wasn't anger. It was a strange kind of clarity. For the first time, he wasn't wondering what she was doing, with whom, or where. He was only thinking about himself, about how he let everything get to this point, about how he stayed silent so many times to preserve a peace that no longer existed. And that same afternoon, he got up and went straight to the bedroom. He gathered her suitcases, the boxes with old papers, photos from when they still tried to appear happy, the clothes she wore to work, her favorite shoes, the books stacked next to the bed, and the forgotten jewelry in the drawers. He separated everything. Every item she left in that place was carefully packed as if closing a chapter. There was no rush, no hesitation. He knew what he was doing. He called her parents and told them he'd send everything the next day. He just asked that they be home to receive it. Afterward, he locked the door and entered a new code on the digital lock. He also canceled the access permissions for their old shared account. He changed the alarm code, deleted photos from his phone, and updated passwords for emails and social media accounts that had once been shared for convenience. With each small adjustment, he felt like he was reclaiming a piece of himself, and as painful as it was, a lightness was growing alongside it. He slept without remorse. For the first time in months, he truly rested, without the weight of doubts, without needing to pretend calmness. 3 days later, around noon, he heard the doorbell. He knew it was her. Michael stayed where he was, listening to the repeated knocks. Sarah insisted for nearly 10 minutes. She tried calling, sent messages, left voice notes. Alan ignored. Outside the house, she saw the delivery notice stuck to the mailbox. Delivery completed. Items delivered as requested. Her parents' names were signed below. She realized then that he'd done everything in advance, that he'd followed through on what he said, and it wasn't a bluff. She tried to peek through the crack in the window, but everything inside seemed silent. Even the neighbor's dog stopped barking as if respecting the silence of his decision. Sarah sat on the front step and waited for almost an hour. She sent more messages, this time in a more subdued tone. Michael, let's talk. You're overreacting. I just went on a company retreat. But by then, none of it mattered. The justifications came too late and felt empty. He remained silent. In that house, the door was locked from the outside, but what was truly inaccessible was his heart. After a while, she left. She walked away without dignity, without answers, with the bitter feeling that this time she had lost control of the narrative. Michael got up from the couch, went to the door, and looked through the peephole. He saw the gate close. He leaned his forehead against the cold wood and stayed there for a few seconds. The silence of the house was an exact reflection of what he felt. An end, a void, a liberation, a void. He went to the kitchen, drank a glass of water, and returned to the bedroom. He opened the closet and saw the empty spaces. For the first time, they didn't bother him. It was as if that absence was necessary, as if every unoccupied inch was now free territory. The pain was there, evident, but it was a clean pain, a pain that no longer hurt more than it already had over the past months. Later that afternoon, he received a call from his in-laws. Sarah's mother, in a low voice, asked if everything was okay, if he wanted to talk, if it wouldn't be better to consider. Michael thanked her for her concern and said there had been no fight, no anger, just a boundary that had been crossed and could no longer be ignored. The woman tried to argue, but he gently interrupted. He said he had always respected her daughter, but now he needed to respect himself too. And he hung up. In the following days, Sarah continued to try to contact him. She called at random times, showed up at his workplace, left messages with acquaintances. In every attempt, he remained firm. He refused to continue the cycle. The decision wasn't impulsive. She had her chance to listen, to understand, to reconsider, and she chose to follow a different path. Michael chose his with fewer words, less confusion, fewer excuses. He was tired of waiting for sincerity. Days later, already settled back into her childhood bedroom, Sarah spent most of her time lying down, scrolling through her phone, waiting for a notification from Michael that never came. Her mother's house was exactly as she remembered. Quiet with the smell of lavender and freshly brewed coffee. But the comfort of that familiar routine only reinforced the weight of what she'd lost. She spent the first few days saying little, only mentioning that things weren't okay and avoiding the topic altogether. Until one random morning, while buttering her toast and pushing her coffee around without appetite, her mother sat across from her and looked directly into her eyes. With a firm but loving tone, she asked, "Daughter, what happened? Tell me what really happened between you and Michael." Sarah sighed deeply, dropped the knife onto the plate, and looked at the floor for a few seconds, as if carefully choosing her words. "He got weird, Mom. Really weird. He got weird, started doubting everything. One day, he told me that if I went on the trip with my coworkers, I shouldn't even come back home. I thought he was exaggerating, that it would pass. I went, and when I came back, he had already sent my things here. He changed the locks, blocked everything. He didn't even want to talk. He just erased me from his life." Her mother sat insolent, absorbing her daughter's version. She slowly shook her head and replied with indignation, "Michael Hasselway's been a decent man. I always liked him. I never imagined he would be capable of something like this. Kicking you out of the house as if you weren't a buddy. That's cruel. I understand couples fight, but this went too far. He lost his mind. He needs to hear from someone reasonable." Hours later, driven by an almost maternal impulse, the mother-in-law decided she needed to look Michael in the eye. She grabbed her bag and drove to his house. She rang the doorbell firmly and waited. Michael, seeing who it was, hesitated for a second, but opened the gate. Michael saw who it was, seemed surprised. He let her in, gestured toward the couch, and remained standing, observing. She sat with the posture of someone who had rehearsed every word. "Michael, I've always respected you. Always. Since I met you. I never imagined you would do something so extreme. You love my daughter. You've always loved her. And now, out of nowhere, you throw everything away like this. Send her away as if she were trash. I understand you might have been angry about her traveling for work, but that's normal. People do that, but this was too much. You should have at the very least listened to what she had to say." Michael listened to everything insolence. He crossed his arms, his expression calm. When she finished speaking, he didn't counter any of her points. He simply turned, went to a drawer in the living room cabinet, and pulled out a brown envelope. He handed it to her with the same serenity as offering a glass of water. She looked at the envelope, confused. "What's this?" she asked. He simply said, "The truth." With trembling hands, the mother-in-law opened the envelope and pulled out 3 matte finish printed photos. In the first, Sarah and Ethan were walking side by side, holding hands on a grassy stretch far from the central area of Thane where they stayed. In the second, they were sitting on a wooden bench, talking too closely. And in the third, under the shade of a distant tree, they were kissing. It wasn't a rushed kiss, nor a peck that could be mistaken for a friendly gesture. It was intimate, clear, definitive. She stared at them for a long time. She didn't say a word. Her eyes began to glisten, but not with anger, with disappointment. Finally, she closed the envelope carefully, as if sealing a secret she never wanted to uncover, and looked at Michael with a mix of shame and respect. "You'll always be welcome in our home. I'm sorry for coming here without knowing anything." He didn't say anything. He just gave a slight nod. She understood. "Can I keep the photos?" she asked. Michael nodded once, looking firmly into her eyes. Without another word, she stood up, clutched the envelope to her chest, and left insolence. And he, standing there in the living room, simply remained firm. No need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Days before confronting his mother-in-law, still on the morning Sarah left for the company trip, Michael waited for her to close the gate, watched the car disappear down the street, and then picked up his phone, opened the browser, and typed "Private Detective plus name of the city where the inn was located." Among the results, he chose one of the highest-rated ones with an office just a few miles from where the work group would spend the weekend. He called immediately. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. Michael explained the essentials. His wife was going on a supposed company integration trip. Had suspected a specific coworker, knew the name of the inn, the street, the neighborhood, and the car she would arrive in. He sent photos of Sarah and Ethan, described the backpack she would carry, the approximate times, and requested total discretion. The detective thanked him for the information and said he would start that same afternoon. Michael hung up and went about the house as if everything were normal. By Sunday evening, before Sarah even parked her car in front of the house, he had already received the report. 3 photos sent via email showed exactly what he feared and confirmed that his intuition was more accurate than Hewished. It was early evening when Sarah got home from work. She was tired, her head full, her steps dragging. She expected silence, maybe a plate of food warming on the stove and her mother's understanding gaze. But when she opened the door, she found something different. Her father was sitting on the couch, hands clasped, staring at the floor. Her mother beside him, tense, her eyes fixed on her from the first second she entered. The atmosphere was heavy, almost suffocating. Before she could ask anything, her mother spoke with a firmness she hadn't shown in years. "Please, daughter, sit down. We need to talk." Sarah sat slowly, her heart racing. She felt a chill down her spine when she saw the envelope on the coffee table. Her mother pulled it gently, as if about to reveal something she herself couldn't yet process. Without a word, she took out the photos, 3 images, the same ones Michael had handed over. In silence, she placed them in front of her daughter. Sarah stared at the first one, her face hand in hand with Ethan. In the second, the two sitting too close, and in the last, the kiss, the scene frozen on paper. The silence was broken by her father's deep voice. "Is this what you were hiding from us? Is this what you did to the man who gave you everything?" Sarah started trembling. She tried to stammer something, but her throat was dry. I messed up. I slipped. It was a moment, just one moment. The words came out disjointed. She was trying to justify the unjustifiable. Her mother stood up, breathing heavily, her eyes wet, not with sadness, but with shame. "You lied to me, Sarah. I went to his house. I fought with him. I defended you like a mother who protects her child with everything she's got. I left there feeling humiliated, like I had taken a moral beating. He didn't yell, didn't raise his voice, just showed me this. And now I understand everything. For heaven's sake, what did you do?" Sarah broke down in tears. She tried to explain, said she was carried away by an impulse, that she thought Michael no longer looked at her the same way. She said Ethan was just an escape, that everything happened quickly and done intentionally. But no sentence seemed powerful enough to erase what those photos showed. Her father got up without looking at her and went to the bedroom, too disappointed to stay in that living room. Her mother, still standing, crossed her arms and said, without enjeu, but with a trembling voice, "You threw away the respect he had for you and ours. Too. Now you'll have to learn to deal with the silence of those who loved you and expected more from you." Then she left, leaving Sarah alone with the photos on the table, staring at the printed fragments of the mistake that would forever change her life. The divorce went through quietly, without fights, without scandals, just the acknowledgement that they had been far apart for a long time. Sarah tried to start a romance with Ethan, the co-worker who unknowingly had triggered Michael's suspicions. But Ethan made it clear from the start that he didn't want anything serious, just moments. That hurt more than she imagined. Emotionally drained and unmotivated to continue in that routine, Sarah quit her job. With the money she received from the separation, she thanked her parents for all their support and decided to start over. She chose a smaller, quieter town where Noon knew her. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was starting life the right way with fewer illusions and more truth. Michael, on the other hand, moved forward at his own pace, without rushing, without guilt. Gradually, Sarah became just a distant memory. He started smiling more easily, enjoying the small moments, an afternoon with friends, a quiet lunch with a good book, a walk without a set return time. The lightness that once seemed impossible now became part of his days. And as unlikely as it seemed, he discovered that life could indeed go on and even surprise him. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.